Most Gachiakuta fans focus on the obvious part of Zanka and Rudo's relationship. They couldn't stand each other when they first met. The anime practically turns their introduction into a comedy scene. Rudo accidentally grabs Zanka's weapon while chasing a cat. Zanka realizes Rudo's main weapon is a disgusting toilet plunger, and the whole thing immediately turns into chaos. On the surface, it looks like a classic shonen rivalry, where two loud personalities clash from day one. But what a lot of fans miss is that Zanka actually starts respecting Rudo almost immediately. Before the plunger disaster happens, Zanka is surprisingly polite. Rudo apologizes for touching his weapon, and Zanka apologizes too. That's a really important moment because it shows that their relationship wasn't built on hatred. The conflict came afterward. The foundation was actually mutual respect for each other's connection to their belongings, which is one of the biggest themes in Gachiakuta. As the story moves forward, Zanka becomes one of the first people who genuinely helps Rudo grow as a giver. A lot of viewers remember Engine recruiting Rudo and giving him a purpose, but they forget who actually helped him understand his own abilities better. During Rudo's training period, Zanka helps him realize that his power isn't just about using one object. He helps Rudo discover that he can activate multiple broken objects through his gloves without immediately destroying them. That's a massive breakthrough for Rudo's development. What's interesting is that Zanka never treats Rudo like some special chosen one. Engine clearly sees something unique in him. Other characters become curious about him because he's from the sphere. Zanka doesn't really care about any of that. He treats Rudo like another cleaner who needs to get stronger. Sometimes that comes across as being harsh or aggressive, but it's actually one of the reasons Rudo improves so quickly. Zanka pushes him because he expects more from him, not because he dislikes him. The biggest turning point between them happens when danger becomes real. During the Raiders' conflict, Zanka ends up taking horrific injuries while fighting Jabba. At one point, Jabba's poison attacks leave Zanka on the verge of death. While fans usually focus on how cool the fight was, the more important part is Rudo's reaction afterward. Suddenly, the loud arguments and constant bickering don't matter anymore. Rudo is genuinely worried about him. That's when you realize their relationship has quietly evolved way beyond rivals. Then there's the hospital scene that a lot of people overlook. After everything that happened, Rudo actually brings flowers to visit Zanka. That's not something he would have done when they first met. Meanwhile, Zanka refuses to sit around feeling sorry for himself. Instead of blaming anyone for his condition, he talks about becoming stronger. The conversation isn't written like two rivals talking anymore. It feels more like two brothers who communicate through arguments and competition instead of emotional speeches. That's why I think most fans completely miss what happened between Zanka and Rudo. Their story isn't about two characters learning to like each other. It's about two characters slowly realizing they're incredibly similar. Both are stubborn. Both hate being looked down on. Both believe strength has to be earned. And both push themselves to ridiculous extremes when someone they care about is in danger. By the time you get deeper into Gachiakuta, the constant arguing isn't evidence that they still dislike each other. It's actually proof of how comfortable they've become around one another. The friendship happened so gradually that a lot of readers never noticed it happening at all. Another thing that gets overlooked is how differently Zanka and Rudo view strength when they first meet. Rudo's entire life before becoming a cleaner was about survival. He grew up being treated like garbage by society, falsely accused of murder, and literally thrown into the pit. Everything he does is fueled by anger and the need to prove everyone wrong. Zanka, meanwhile, already has a place in the world. He has teammates, experience, and confidence. Early on, they're almost complete opposites. That's actually why their arguments work so well. Whenever Rudo loses his temper, Zanka is usually the first person to challenge him. Not because he's trying to be a jerk, but because he sees someone who is letting his emotions control him. A lot of fans interpret their clashes as personality conflicts, but they're really ideological conflicts. They're constantly debating what it means to be strong. One of the biggest examples of this is how they approach teamwork. Early Rudo doesn't trust anyone. Why would he? Everyone he ever cared about either died, betrayed him, or abandoned him. Even after joining the cleaners, he often acts like he's fighting alone. Zanka, on the other hand, has already learned the value of relying on other people. He understands that nobody survives in the pit by themselves. You can actually see Rudo slowly adopting some of Zanka's mindset throughout the story. In the beginning, Rudo's first instinct is usually to rush ahead and solve everything himself. Later on, he starts coordinating more with the other cleaners. He listens more. He thinks more strategically. A lot of people credit Engine for that growth, but Zanka deserves just as much credit because he's constantly forcing Rudo to see things from a different perspective. What's funny is that Zanka probably understands Rudo better than he lets on. He rarely gives emotional speeches. He rarely sits down and talks about feelings. But whenever Rudo is struggling, Zanka somehow knows exactly which buttons to push. Sometimes that means motivating him. Sometimes it means annoying him. Either way, he's usually trying to get Rudo moving forward. There's also a level of trust that develops between them that fans don't talk about enough. Trust isn't built through dramatic declarations in Gachiakuta. It's built through combat. It's built through dangerous missions. It's built through putting your life in someone else's hands. Every time Zanka and Rudo fight alongside each other, they're proving that trust, little by little. Think about how many times one of them could have easily let the other fail. Early on, that almost feels like something they do. Yet when the moment actually arrives, they consistently have each other's backs. The insults never stop, but the actions tell a completely different story. That's why the jabber fight is so important to understanding their relationship. Fans remember the brutality. They remember the injuries. They remember how insane the battle looked. But the emotional impact comes from seeing how much the other characters, especially Rudo, care about Zanka's survival. It's one of the first moments where the story forces everyone to acknowledge that these people have become a family. Even after recovering, Zanka never really changes his attitude toward Rudo. He doesn't suddenly become overly friendly. He doesn't start praising him every 5 minutes. And honestly, that's what makes the friendship feel real. Real friendships don't always involve constant compliments. Sometimes they involve making fun of each other every chance you get. In a weird way, the fact that Zanka never starts treating Rudo differently is a sign of respect. A lot of characters begin looking at Rudo as someone special because of his unusual abilities and his connection to larger mysteries in the world. Zanka doesn't care. He still sees the same stubborn idiot he met on day one. Rudo actually seems to appreciate that more than he realizes. He spent his entire life being judged by labels: trash tribe, criminal, murderer, outsider, chosen one, potential savior. Everybody keeps putting titles on him. Zanka is one of the few people who simply treats him like Rudo. The irony is that their relationship starts with a misunderstanding over a weapon, but eventually becomes one of the strongest bonds in the series. The same guy who thought Rudo was an annoying problem becomes someone willing to risk his life fighting beside him. And the same guy who thought Zanka was insufferable eventually trusts him with his life. When you put all of that together, it's hard not to see their relationship as one of the most underrated parts of Gachiakuta. Fans love talking about Rudo and Engine because that's the mentor-student dynamic. Fans love talking about Rudo's revenge because that's the main plot. But the gradual evolution between Zanka and Rudo is where some of the story's best character writing happens. It isn't loud, it isn't flashy. It just slowly grows chapter after chapter until one day you realize these two aren't rivals anymore. They're brothers,